To discuss with our political panel, Margaret Taleb, she's the White House correspondent from Bloomberg, and Bill Kristol, he's editor of the conservative publication, The Weekly Standard. Thanks to both of you for being here tonight. So Margaret, we have this thank you tour. It's already begun. We have another stop tonight in Ohio. Do you expect to hear a similar tone and message to that we heard from Trump during the campaign? I mean, even similar chants, lock her up, etc. Or do you expect a toning down?
Well, I actually would be really surprised to hear lock her up, but I think this is a Trump victory tour. And it's not just the way Trump has presented himself today at the Carrier plant. It is what Jason Miller and his communications team have been doing, have been ramping up all week, as we've seen, you know, like cabinet full of winners. He's picking winners. This is his chance to do two things, to say thank you to the people who voted for him, both Democrats in places that Hillary Clinton thought were going to vote for her, and Republicans, right? And to show that he's in command, he's making decisions, he's making things happen. That's a lot of what we're going to be seeing.
Absolutely. Bill, is he going to be open to criticism for, you got a lot to do, right? You put together administration for going around and kind of soaking up the adulation in a thank you tour, going back to his greatest hits in effect.
I mean, I guess, of course, people can criticize him, but he'll say, hey, look, I'm busy making appointments right and left and draining the swamp here in Washington and so forth. And he's delivering these jobs, apparently, by bludgeoning or appearing to bludgeon Carrier not to move its plant. I'm not sure that's a great precedent for how we want presidents to deal with every private business in America. You know, it has all kinds of worrisome, I'd say, implications. But short term, they're very happy. They're very happy in They're very happy in Indianapolis. Meanwhile, back here in Washington, in the swamp, I've got to say, for a town, if he's draining the swamp, the alligators are doing pretty well, right? I mean, what does his cabinet consist of? I think so far, 1 senator, 2 congressmen, 3 billionaires, you know.
There's a little bit of money there, no question.
No, but I mean, it's not the most, I'd say it's not only not the most outsider cabinet we've ever seen, it's one of the most insider cabinets we've ever seen, which on the whole is okay with me because I think a lot of the appointments are pretty good. But I don't know, so maybe, this is in a way a model, though, for the question going forward. Can Trump sustain this? Can he govern in a fairly traditional, it looks like, and responsible way? Look at these appointments, right? Senators, congressmen, et cetera, a few billionaires. That's not quite so traditional, but that's Trump's world. And then, meanwhile, go out and give speeches in middle America where it's, I'm fighting for you, I'm taking on those powerful guys.
Fulfilling that populist demand. That's really the challenge.
In a way, there's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because if he was hiring or selecting people who were true outsiders, not known here, then of course you would say, oh my gosh, you would hear here in Washington from the chat. We're so nervous, they're unfamiliar, what are they going to do? We have no idea what their Treasury Department or their Defense Department's going to look like.
Well, and you would see the markets react, which I think is one thing we can say that Trump is trying to avoid right now. He likes the fact that the markets have responded positively so far to these changes. That is a big sign of confidence for New York, for Wall Street, and for the insiders who he's trying to reach. But again, it is the threading of that needle, which is how do you keep a populist message going when the things that you are actually doing are not any of those things that you were intimating or even saying that you would do on a campaign
When do
trail.
his supporters see that and start to ask, have I been sold a false bill of goods? I want to quote, and she's obviously not a supporter of Donald Trump, but what Elizabeth Warren told Anderson Cooper, my colleague, last night about Trump's choice for Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Have a listen.
The American people are furious over what Wall Street has done. They don't want somebody who's going to come in here and say, hey, let's help Wall Street. And what Donald Trump is doing is he's literally handing the keys to the Treasury over to a Wall Street banker who helped cause the crash.
Warren called Mnuchin the Forrest Gump, in fact, to the 2008 crash. But fair criticism there, and how do, more specifically, how do his supporters react to that?
I think his supporters are thrilled that he just saved 1,000 jobs in middle America. They'll be thrilled if he renegotiates a couple of trade deals, even if he doesn't fundamentally change them. There are plenty of things he can do to keep them happy. And they're going to say, I'm fine. Look, Trump himself is an extremely rich guy, an insider who gave money to Democrats, played the system, as he himself says, and they'll do a little bit of this. You have to know the system to really fix it, you know. And I think Mnuchin is the most vulnerable of his appointments in terms of confirmation, incidentally, just from reading, I don't know, I have no inside knowledge, just reading about him. You could imagine Democrats really picking a fight and some Republicans being nervous defending him. But fine, Trump will say, okay, maybe Mnuchin won't make it. He'll appoint someone else to be Secretary of the Treasury.
I think there's 3 people who are actually furious. It's Hillary Clinton. with Warren and Bernie Sanders,
Okay.
right?
At least for now.
Right now.
When you look at this, and certainly there have been a lot of cagey appointments at this point, several of the names being considered for other posts, Defense Department, et cetera, you know, fairly popular across party lines, which is interesting. But you are seeing within the Trump camp really open fighting, you know, public fighting over particularly the State Department choice. I want to play what Newt Gingrich had to say about the possibility of Mitt Romney for Secretary of State.
You have never, ever in your career seen a serious adult who's wealthy, independent, has been a presidential nominee, suck up at the rate that Mitt Romney is sucking up. I mean, I am confident his closest friends that they have so many things in common, that they're both such wise, brilliant people.
We should note that Newt Gingrich was considered early on a possibility for Secretary of State, so perhaps there's a bit of personal interest there. But have you, Bill, you've been around a long time, have you ever seen anything so public? And, of course, there were comments from Kellyanne Conway in a tweet earlier in the week.
I mean, I've known Newt since I came to Washington 30 years ago, and I've always gotten along well with him, but it's really deplorable, if I can use the term, what he's doing.
Newt, to be fair, there are other members of the circle that are publicly criticizing, openly criticizing.
But Gingrich thinks in particular was Newt because he thinks Romney defeated him. Romney did defeat him for the presidential nomination in 2012, and he's never forgiven Romney, I suppose. Romney, I think, has behaved actually with considerable dignity. He has not apologized. He has not said he was wrong about what he said. He said what I, myself, as a never-Trumper, think, that the Trump administration is off to a pretty promising start, and I think Romney thinks if he could help the country as Secretary of State, he should take it. He has not been campaigning for the job at all. So the criticism is unfair. But yes, there are many splits in Trump world, it sounds like. But look, Trump seems to like that. And it is, you know, we were talking about how one way of thinking about it is thinning, for threading the needle. Yeah. And the other way of doing it is, you know, you can keep a couple of balls in the air at once. Keep the populist ball in the air, keep the insider ball in the air, keep the establishment ball in the air, keep the conservative ball in the air, keep the bipartisan ball in the air. Jim Mattis, if he's appointed Secretary of Defense, will be hailed by people from both parties.
No question.
Jeff Sessions, that'll be a partisan vote for confirmation.
For sure.
Everyone's got something.
But Margaret, it does also expose real disagreement inside the circle.
Yeah, I think tactically this is actually a smart. Well, I don't know if it's smart. I think it's an interesting and possibly smart route. Strategically, I think you're like planting a lot of seeds of destruction later. You foment a lot of stuff when you do this. But when you parade everyone through, you know, the front of Trump Tower or a restaurant and you make it like a game of The Apprentice, the upside is, especially when you're doing it for everyone, you know right away how everyone feels about everyone. If Mitt Romney can withstand the onslaught of all of this now and it's done with and Trump decides that's the way he wants to go, it's done. And he's also put Mitt Romney in his place and reminded him exactly how vulnerable he is. So you can see tactically kind of the thinking behind that move. But I think in the long term, there's so many bad feelings and kind of seeds of power games that get planted here that if any of these nominees actually gets confirmed and lasts, you know, more than a year or so, the history began before the presidency even started.
I mean, we saw people are now talking again about the team of rivals, you know, referencing Lincoln's cabinet. Of course, they talked the same about Obama's cabinet. And he had some attempts there. He had a Republican, for instance, ambassador to China, et cetera. But very quickly, over time, that was a pretty tight-knit group there. Not many rivals by the end of his administration.
At the end of the day, this is my editorial I just finished for tomorrow's issue. Governing matters, right? Governing is what is going to matter most. And so at the end of the day, Margaret's absolutely right. You can juggle these balls in the air at some point, but at some point you have to decide what is our policy towards Russia, towards Syria, you know, et cetera, towards the economy. Am I going to renegotiate trade deals a little, or am I going to change the world trading system? So those will be decisions to take. But I think for now, short term, doing a pretty good job of juggling.
We'll see.